Yo, what do you know? It is Rabbit of ScrubLeet Academy, and we're going to go through the best feats that take advantage of opportunities presented in Baldur's Gate 3. These are not the best feats in the game, but they're surprisingly good, synergize pretty well with a lot of stuff, and are listed in order from least to most awesome. If you haven't seen my previous tier list of the absolute best feats, linked up top and in the description, check that out. Remember, this list will pertain to Honor Mode above all else, but you can take it as a reliable feat chain for pretty much every difficulty. I don't want to waste too much time talking about how this is my opinion, so just assume this list is completely infallible, okay? Alright, let's get to it. Number 10, Defensive Duelist. This one is weird, but sadly not all that usable just because the dueling combat style isn't really that good in BG3. Technically, this should be better than it is, but it's just not broken enough to actually matter until well into Act 3 when you can get the Duelist prerogative. That weapon alone makes the dueling build completely, but it is fine, I guess. It's the worst of the good feats in my opinion, but that doesn't mean it's not a good feat, and it doesn't mean that you can't really make something of it. Number 9, Shield Master. This is the feat that I have the least experience with out of all of them, but I'll try to do it justice. In the few areas it shines, it's incredible. The problem is that sword and board combat just isn't worth much in BG3, since positioning is heavily based on environment, and you don't have the best freedom to taunt foes into attacking you, which nullifies most of the great benefits this provides. I actually find that this can be useful to help a low defense caster or ranger a bit more, especially if their saving throws are a bit weak. Enemy casters do like to spam AoE spells, so it's pretty useful for your lowest health allies, but I always find better defensive options somehow, even though this one's still solid by the numbers. Number 8, Charger. Somehow I always avoid this feat, but on paper and in practice, it's a massive boost to damage and pretty functionally useful. It's clutch for closing the distance, adds 5 damage if you use the actual charge attack, which doesn't provoke opportunity attacks, procs extra attack, and is versatile, allowing you the choice between damage and a pretty effective shove. The only downside is it uses up your action and bonus action, but it does add 30 feet of movement to your character, so it's got some awesome utility movement. The weirdest thing is, I usually find there are just too many good top tier feats to bother grabbing this one, which means I rarely get to see it in action. Still, it's a solid option. Number 7, Athlete. The single best part of this feat is mobility, specifically the 50% boost to jump distance. It's a big deal for getting you into the fray, but it also helps you avoid any ground-based hazards, and it helps you to clear chasms outside of combat, which adds a bit more utility than Charger. What's more, it doesn't consume your action, so if you want to cast a spell or use an item, it's easier to do that than with Charger, and that's not even accounting for the +1 to strength, basically nullifying the movement reduction of being prone. Just like Heavy Armor Master, this one surprised me just how useful it turned out to be. Number 6, Heavy Armor Master. It actually strikes me just how much I like this feat. I'm gonna say the extra 3 damage reduction comes in handy so much more frequently than you might think, since almost nobody actually has magic damage in melee. It's pretty much just a 3 DR against physical damage, that's how common you'll see use out of it. Not the most thrilling feat in the game, but it comes with a +1 to strength, so it's actually surprisingly impactful. All in all, I think it deserves this spot. Number 5, Polearm Master. Polearm Master was destined to be on this list, and in terms of position, I think it deserves the lowest of the top 5 spots. It's a good feat, and to make it this high is laudable, but where Polearm Master shines is actually when it's combined with the right extra reach item, the Sentinel feat, Great Weapon Master, maybe Savage Attacker, some damage procs. There's just too much extra stuff you need to make this work. On its own, it's useful for free opportunity attacks though, and worth the number 5 spot. Number 4, Resilient. You would be surprised just how powerful this can get with the right build. In tabletop D&D, this feat can be taken multiple times, but in BG3, it's only able to be gotten once per character. I can imagine a dual-wielder paladin with all the major saving throws breaking this poor game further, so thankfully that can't be done. Still, you get +1 to an ability score and proficiency in saving throws with that score. It's very simple, but when you're getting feared or charmed into oblivion, it's also incredibly effective. Number 3, Savage Attacker. The actual math on this feat is complex, but I've linked a basic breakdown for you to calculate out yourselves. It's actually not that bad when you get into it, and the average weapon damage boost is anywhere between 25 and 31% increase, depending on the dice you're rolling for your attack. That said, it doesn't add to things like Great Weapon Master, Sharpshooter, or any bonuses to damage, and doesn't play on most effects in Honor Mode, but it's still insanely cheesy for a dual wielder, especially for a Divine Smiting Paladin. Pretty much everyone but a dagger rogue can take advantage of this. Number 2, Spell Sniper. You know that warlock you see breaking this game with ridiculous Eldritch Blast cheese? Yeah, that guy takes this feat. No question, if you're a damage-dealing caster exploiting crit cheese, this is the feat for you. It's here for a reason and just barely not as good as the top-tier feats because most of the absolutely broken caster stuff doesn't necessarily need this one to be broken. Still, if you're a damager, it's an attractive option regardless of the supposedly best feats, and I regularly find myself tempted to take it on the few occasions I actually make a caster. Number 1, Sentinel. I feel like you kinda guessed I'd throw this one here. Where Polearm Master requires so much else to make it work, Sentinel just does its thing right off the bat and works with so many things that you want to use it with. By itself, I find this is an amazing feat for dealing with rangers and casters who spend their time trying to run away from your melee tunes before attacking, and who you can lock down pretty much every single time. When combined with other feats, it starts to become a nightmare for large groups of easily controlled enemies like goblins, zombies, and even assassins that can't keep up with your absurd melee threat range. Of all the feats I've tried on this list, I find myself constantly coming back to this one, and I consider it the best all-around good feat of all. And those are the top 10 opportunistic feats in BG3, ready to augment any build you can imagine. Next time, we're going to head into the trenches of BG3's feat system for the disappointing, underwhelming feats, so keep an eye out for that video in a couple of days. If you liked what you saw, do all the stuff everybody tells you to do, and don't forget to do more of the stuff everyone tells you to do. That said, I'm a get up out of here, but you take care, and bye-bye for now.